The whole concept of political economy, as you know, was from Adam Smith's time. And there it was really a rise of a new class in the polity, in the society, which took the economic analysis as a tool in order to demolish the obstructions that they were visualizing coming in the whole economic process from a class which had no longer any productive potential or value. And in order, in their fight against that, they used the tool of economic analysis and economy as a political tool. And it was really in that historical context that the political economy term came. And later on it became the just economy, and Samuelson's textbook, Just Economy. I mean, the political aspect just went away because it was already a rise of the political class which controlled the thinking and used the economic analysis, and then it made a science in itself, the economics, what some of us would like to call bourgeois economics. So that became divested from that political economy thinking because it was corresponding to a particular need at a particular time. Smith, Ricardo, but I don't have to. My point is that in the morning, the way the political economy was described or sought to be explained was dichotomous and, to my mind, doing a little injustice to the term of political economy. And how does the political economy differ from the bourgeois economics, as I may call it? Basically, it is the political economy looks at it as a historical process. The science of economics, as it developed later, that looks upon it more as a science which is true for all places and for all times, like geometry. Political economy takes crisis as the beginning of analysis. And crisis is all around us, and not only now. Whereas the economic science starts with the concept of equilibrium, balance, how the whole thing will converge into a kind of a order of a balance and harmony. And lastly, the political economy thinks in terms of going beyond the surface and trying to understand the forces of which the superficial phenomena is the effect. And there you go into the question of whom, how Lenin described it. Which is the class which is using this economic tool in order to further its interests? What kind of class contradiction emerges? What kind of class conflict it can give rise to, etc. So from that angle, political economy becomes an integrated approach to a problem which is economic, which is political, and which is also social. And in that sense, the separating the two, to my mind, is not very scientific. And if we separate it, then we fall into the trap of creating a straw man and destroying it. Then there is politics, and that politics is represented by what is called political class. Till today, I have not been able to understand what is this political class. I can understand a capitalist class, I can understand a labor class, but what is this political class? They arise out of us. They again, if they get defeated, they get back into our own system. But then this demon is created, political class. And then everything is wrong with the political class, and the economy is fine. There is no crisis. So you try to find solutions to the crisis in terms of this abstract frame of the failings of the political class. And political class, of course, is the class represented in parliaments, in legislatures, political executive, etc. And then we find a solution saying that have institutional solution to that. Have regulatory committees, have regulators, expert regulators, and let them decide. The parliament may lay down the law, and the experts will define the law. Courts on one hand are doing that. Now the experts will do it in more concrete way in terms of things which will affect the interests of the people, the very living of the people. Now this, to my mind, is not the idea of political economy or the crisis of a political economy. The various indicators which Professor Nair recounted right in the beginning, and he said this is how the mainstream debate explains the crisis and tries to understand the crisis. In a way, they are all quantitative indicators. So much of fiscal deficit, so much of CAD, so much of inflationary pressures, etc. And then we say that this is the crisis, these quantitative measures have been exceeded, and therefore there is a problem, the balance is disturbed, and how to bring back the balance and how to rein in the runaway, say, exchange rate or fiscal deficit or whatever. Now, to my mind, this is very superficial way of looking at the crisis. The crisis of the political economy, we have to find out why it has come, and in terms of the interests of the classes, in terms of the conflict of the class interests. And if we look at that, then one can make some meaning out of the term of crisis. Now, all these quantitative indicators totally forget the qualitative aspect of the crisis. And the qualitative aspect of the crisis is really what has happened, to my mind, what has happened, particularly after 1991, where the corporate capital in India is getting into greater, more close collaboration with the global finance capital. This is the essence of economic reforms. And this is the root of whatever problems we are now saying and trying to quantify. Now, this qualitative aspect gets neglected in the mainstream debate for obvious reasons. One is that this qualitative interest aspect doesn't suit them to talk about this. Whereas the other quantitative indices and their analysis, that is of concern to them because that affects directly their profits, their wealth, their income, their influence, including the political influence. So the debate gets concentrated more on the quantitative aspect. Secondly, it also helps them in, for example, when we talk of the quantitative aspects, then you can have alternation of arguments suiting your interests. It becomes very opportunistic, self-serving logic. Example is the debate on the integration versus decoupling. Only a few years ago, I remember in the debates, those who were the protagonists of integration were taking credit for decoupling of their imagination and saying that because of this we have been able to protect our economy from the turbulent winds of the world economy. Now, integration is used in order to justify the failures of the policies. If the rate has decelerated, it is because of the whirlwind which is coming, the slowdown of the world economy. So it becomes an alternation of the arguments, more or less self-serving kind of a thing. So we have to get out of that. And then we have to see what is the kind of real political economic crisis that we are facing. And indicators of that are available. It's not as if the academic debates have not really addressed those issues. Now, morning there was a reference to agriculture. NK said about structural kind of problems that we are facing, and he mentioned agriculture. Employment also came in for discussion. Now, if we really have to see the nature of the crisis, I think these are the two indicators. One is the agrarian crisis, and the other is what is happening to the employment. And it's a very real kind of a phenomenon which affects the lives of the people, which affects the very survival of the people. When I heard that there was no agrarian crisis in this country, I was a little stunned. If you look at agrarian question is old. It has been with us right from the colonial days. But after 1991, for various reasons, one can go into that, it has assumed crisis proportions. Fragmentation of holding, to which a reference was made, it becomes totally uneconomic. In fact, if latest figure is 53% of the workforce is dependent on agriculture. Only 4 years ago it was 57%, and a little before that was 63% or something. Now, if such a large proportion of workforce of economy is dependent on the agriculture, agrarian economy, and agrarian economy is what? The average size of the holding, if you take, it just cannot work in an economic and productive way. And you find all the empirical surveys also show that for the whole year, the small and marginal farmer will work, and he will work very hard, and he will produce loss. The only production that he does is loss in terms of the economy. Now, then he gets into debt. Then he has to supplement his income by going out and doing whatever comes his way and try to reduce the loss that he has produced. The most the notorious phenomenon of farmer suicides, more than 2 lakhs, and there's a lot of debate on that, and we have talked about it, and governments have evolved packages in order to meet that, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if a large majority, 92% of the peasantry is small and marginal farmers, uneconomic farming, producing loss year after year after year. Now, and then ultimately, if for various reasons, the opening up, etc., if you get into a problem where it becomes impossible for him to survive and goes for suicide. Now, that's perhaps the worst indication of the crisis we have. Now, that is a crisis, not so much the other quantitative indicators. On the employment side also, similar situation is there. You can stop me whenever you, yeah. On the employment side also, if you see, a lot of discussion also took place in the morning. And then I have seen some economic analysis recently where reference is made to a sharp decline in the agricultural employment of the order of about 15 million. If you compare 2004-2005 figures, NSO basis, to 2009-2010, then you will find there is a sharp decline in agricultural employment. And then it is cited as a kind of a evidence that the stasis which characterized the agrarian economy for decades and decades, perhaps that is now thawing and movement is taking place. The labor is moving from farm employment to off-farm employment. This is what we want to. And perhaps the things are changing. If you look at the data of employment, you will find that this 15 million, the decline in agriculture employment is even larger. It is something of the order of female workforce in agriculture have withdrawn from, and about 20 million, as large as that. 5 million is the male workforce addition. So ultimately it comes to about minus 15, that is a decline of 15 million workforce in agriculture, which is cited as an evidence of thawing the stasis in agrarian economy. Now, if you really look at it, where has it gone? If you broadly see the picture, you will find one sector which really has shown a surge in the employment, and that is the construction sector. In the construction sector, it is of the order of about 17.8 million. Now, construction sector, both organized and unorganized, if you take together, the informal employment in the organized sector also is of the order of 50% or so. Exact figure is available. So what is happening is, true, the agriculture is ejecting the workforce, it is going, but it is withdrawal of the female workforce, that is the reason for the decline, not so much the shift to other sectors. Shift to other sectors also taken place. And if you see other sectors also, then you will find that roughly the surge in employment in the construction sector is more or less consistent with the kind of increase in the workforce that took place in different sectors and moved away. But this construction sector, it is true that not having any employment is better to have at least some employment of informal type or even exploitative type, so that they can make both ends meet. In fact, the small and marginal farmer has been always doing it all along. Now, this construction sector employment which has come, one has to look beyond it and see what kind of employment, and is it generating assets which will provide a continuous source of income for the people who are being engaged in that. Most of it is coming in terms of the construction of so-called infrastructure, the airports and the highways, and then the real estate, the big bungalows, small houses, housing colonies, the whole lot of it. It is coming from. Now, none of this is really creating assets. I mean, I'm generalizing, but largely it is true. None of it is creating assets which are of value to those who are creating this asset. In the sense, you create an asset and on that basis you have continued source of income. That is not happening. So this will be a phenomenon which will again raise the problems. What will they do after this happens? Because the assets are not of value to them. Now, then only the kind of trickle down aspects and whatever it can absorb, that will be the only ultimate result. But in the short run, there is a surge, there is a shift, there is a decline. But decline, as I said, 20 million women have withdrawn from participating in the agrarian employment. And the reasons are not very clear yet. Some reasons have been cited, and one of the reasons that sounds reasonable is that the agricultural female workforce was employed in allied activities, rearing goat, rearing cattle, fisheries, the whole lot of this activity which supported the agrarian incomes. Now, I read in one of the articles that one of the reasons is that big business is entering into many of these activities, whether it is poultry, whether it is dairy, whether it is fisheries, with the result that absolute population of goats and cattle has come down, with the result that the fisheries are getting controlled by large-scale business and poultry, etc. The withdrawal is not voluntary withdrawal. Withdrawal of the female workforce is involuntary, because they have nothing, they cannot sustain that kind of activity now, therefore they withdraw. So the withdrawal is also not sign of a great positive indicator, that is, the women are going to study or they are doing some other work or they are work leisure complex of change. Simple thing is, it's just not available. The availability of such allied incomes is being denied to them. So the kind of statistics on the employment, particularly the agriculture sector, which still constitutes the mainstay of the workforce of India, that is not conclusive in terms of any great improvement towards the thawing of the stasis that one sometimes talks about. Second, and that was talked about in the morning also, about the low, that is elasticity of employment going down. If you really look at the employment picture also, the crisis signs are very much there, and agrarian crisis, the employment crisis, this is really the political economic crisis. And that comes because of a systematic effort to tilt the balance of class power against the basic classes. And that is the essence of the policies of the reforms also. So this is, to my mind, the crisis, not so much the quantitative indicators, but the qualitative indicator in terms of the class interest and in terms of the class conflict. Well, my time is over, and even otherwise, where do we go from here is the big question.